Lung cancer, we've heard of it. Liver cancer, we've heard of it. Stomach cancer, colon cancer, we've heard of those too. But have you ever noticed something strange? We almost never hear about heart cancer. That doesn't mean the heart can never get cancer. It means the heart is rarely affected compared with many other organs. And that's strange. Because the heart is not sealed off. Blood is constantly flowing through it. If cancer cells enter the bloodstream, they could reach the heart. So why does the heart seem like such a bad place for cancer to live? A science study suggests a fascinating answer. It may be because
the heart never stops beating.
When we think about cancer, we usually think about genes. We think about the immune system. We think about drugs, chemotherapy, and targeted therapy. But this study asks a different question. Can cancer cells also be affected by their physical environment? For a cancer cell to grow, it doesn't just need nutrients. It also needs a place where it can settle. But the heart is not a quiet house. It keeps beating. It keeps stretching, it keeps squeezing, it keeps changing shape. For us, that's a heartbeat. But for cancer cells, it may feel like living in a house that never stops shaking and squeezing. The paper calls these forces mechanical load. We can think of it as the physical force behind every heartbeat. The researchers wanted to know, could these forces make cancer cells harder to grow in the heart? So how do you test this? The researchers designed a clever experiment. They kept a mouse heart alive, with blood supply. But it no longer had to pump blood for the body. In other words, the heart was still alive. But it was mechanically unloaded. It had much less pressure and stretching than a working heart. Think of it as a heart that still runs, but has its workload removed. You can see that the two hearts move differently. The loaded heart moves more clearly. The unloaded heart shows much less motion and deformation. This part matters, because they were not comparing a living heart with dead tissue. They were comparing two living, blood-supplied hearts with different physical loads. That lets them test whether cancer cells are affected by the heart's physical forces. Then they placed glowing cancer cells into both types of hearts. One heart was under normal physical load, the other was unloaded. The difference was huge. In the loaded heart, cancer cells grew very poorly. But in the unloaded heart, cancer cells expanded dramatically. They even began replacing the healthy cardiomyocytes. It's as if once the heart's physical pressure was removed, cancer cells could finally settle in. The researchers also checked that this wasn't because more cancer cells entered at the start. And it wasn't because the normal heart simply killed them. The main difference was that after unloading, cancer cells divided and grew more. So the key takeaway is this. When the heart's physical load goes down, cancer cells grow more easily. But one mouse experiment is not enough. So they built a more controlled model. They created a tiny strip of beating heart-like tissue in the lab. Just think of it as a mini heart muscle in a dish. Then they added cancer cells to this mini heart muscle. First they tested mechanical load. When the load was removed, cancer cells grew more. When the load was increased, cancer cells grew less. Then they asked a second question. What if the tissue is still versus beating? The result was again simple. In still tissue, cancer cells grew more. In beating tissue, cancer cells grew less. And in the part squeezed the most, there were even fewer cancer cells. That makes the earlier result more convincing. It wasn't just happening in a whole heart. Even a tiny beating heart-like tissue showed the same pattern. So how does a cancer cell feel the heart's force? The study points to a key molecule. You can think of it like a tiny antenna inside the cancer cell. When this antenna works, the cell can pick up physical signals from the beating heart. Those signals help make it harder for the cancer cell to grow. But when the researchers weakened this antenna, the force signal was weakened too. The cancer cell became less sensitive to the heart's pressure and movement. It was like the cell could no longer feel the heart pushing back. So even in a normally loaded, beating heart, the tumors were able to grow larger. So the most interesting part of this study is this. Cancer is not only a problem of genes and chemistry. It may also be shaped by the physical environment inside the body. And the heart is a very special organ. It keeps moving, stretching, squeezing, and relaxing. That environment may make it difficult for cancer cells to settle down. This is not a ready-made treatment yet. But it opens a new way of thinking. Cancer cells don't only live in a chemical world. They also live in a physical world of pressure, stretching, and deformation. So back to the original question. Why do we hear so little about heart cancer? It may not be because cancer cells can't reach the heart. It may be because the heart itself is a difficult place to live. For us, that is life. But for cancer cells, it may be the force behind every heartbeat. Do you think future cancer therapy could use physical forces? More details can be found in this paper.